Hey, welcome to Picking Daisies, the podcast where we dive into all things messy, beautiful, and a little bit chaotic. I'm Mary Hendricks, your hot mess of a host, ready to walk with you through every laughable, cry-worthy, and grow-worthy moment. Every Tuesday, join me and an incredible lineup of fellow moms, women, and experts as they share their own stories of growth, resilience, and silver linings that they've uncovered. Together, we're building a village, a reminder that even in the thick of it, you are truly never alone. Because let's be real, we all have our mess. Everyone's got those moments. But here, we are finding the beauty in it, also the humor, and growing from whatever life and motherhood may bring our way. Welcome to Picking Daisies. Hello, friends. Welcome back. So, quick heads up before we dive on in. If you hear wind or birds or just general sounds of life happening behind me, I don't really know what this is going to sound like. I apologize. I'm sitting outside to record this little section, and that's just because it is so gosh darn beautiful outside that I cannot bring myself to sit in the cold, dark basement to do this. So, I apologize if it is messy sounding. We'll find out after I'm done, but it is what it is. Okay, I think you all don't care. And if you do, I don't know if this show is going to be the best fit for you because I'm a clusterfuck of a person. But with that being said, let's get into today's episode. We are talking birth stories, specifically C-sections, as you will see with the title. It is not an overly filtered, wrapped in a bow version. We are talking real, raw, honest experiences that don't always get the attention and respect that they deserve. I am being joined by two incredible women, fellow C-section moms, Bethany Scott and Jen Wagner. And we are opening up about the emotional, physical, and mental load that comes with birth, especially when it doesn't go as planned. We're covering everything from self-advocacy to stillbirth, so trigger warning, anesthesia, shoulder pain to that oh-so-dreaded first poop. But if you have ever felt unseen in your birth experience, whether you've had a C-section or not, or just want to feel less alone in how complicated it can all be, or learn and be prepared, this conversation is for you. We are not here to scare anyone, but we are going to be honest. So I just want to put that out there as another sort of trigger warning. If you are currently expecting, this is a very vulnerable time for you and your peace of mind. Before you begin, I want you to ask yourself if this is going to be helpful for you right now, where you are in your journey. If it is, keep on going forward. If not, hit pause, come back and see us another time. But if you are sticking around, what do you say we dive on in and go pick some daisies? You ready? I know I am. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi, Picking Daisies. We are back. We have another wonderful episode coming our way. I'm really excited about this one too, because personally, when the topic came my way, just have you guys on C-sections. I'm a two-time C-section mom. I have 3 kids, but I've had 2 C-sections. And it's just a topic I love talking about because, I think anyone that has had one, and I know you guys can attest to this, it sweeps you off your feet a little bit and a lot of it. And I also feel like it's downplayed a major bit. And you're caught in this weird limbo of you're not sure how to talk about it. It's, you don't want to sound like you're complaining, but at the same time, it's hard. So
you have to acknowledge.
Very excited.
We call it
it's hard.
The Scarlet Sea.
Yes, literally. But I have a tendency of jumping ahead. So before we get in, we have Bethany and we have Jen here sitting down. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. Just, what you guys want to say, whatever. Let us get to know you.
Okay. My name is Bethany Scott, and I am a 3-time C-section mom, and I entered into the birth space as a birth doula. So I obviously did not expect or think I was going to have C-sections or thought that was going to be my path, but it ended up that way. And that's why I feel like now I just have such a desire to bring a better tone around it because it was so impactful in how I birthed my children and the success of my happiness birthing my children as well.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm Jen Wagner. I'm an obstetric anesthesiologist. So I take care of women having C-sections every time I'm at work. And I am a C-section mom myself too. My daughter was breached, so I had a planned C-section with her. And then I ended up having a VBAC for my son. And I have always been interested in kind of finding a way to talk to my patients before they come to me in the hospital. I feel like people come with a lot of questions and there's a lot of knowledge gaps that I found. And so Bethany and I kind of came together and decided to start talking about it on a podcast. So we created a podcast together called the C-Section Experience. And that has evolved into, talking a lot about the sort of the medical information that I wish people knew, but also talking a lot about the emotional side of things and feelings of stigma and, why is it that there aren't more people kind of giving a lot of education around C-sections? And I think, we've been sort of exploring that topic a little bit more as we've gone along.
I feel like for me, like when I had, and diving into it, so going into my birth experiences, I had my firstborn. She was a vaginal delivery, perfect pregnancy, perfect labor. Up until then, she had something called shoulder dystocia. So she got stuck, code blue, very scary, traumatic, not fun. She ended up being okay, thank God, and whatnot, but it just terrified me. And I had previously been a personal trainer. That's what I did before I had kids. And it was like, it's funny looking back because I realized how much like the pregnancy space has actually evolved in such a short time, which is pretty cool. It makes me excited. But my oldest is 7. So this is 8, 9, 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago that I became a personal trainer, and pregnancy fitness space started expanding, and the education into safe fitness during pregnancy and postpartum and all that stuff really started to come about. And the way I was trained, there wasn't a lot of courses on it. So the way to get a specialty in it was like through these like small little plans. And the one that I, unfortunately, like I did learn great stuff, but unfortunately it was also very fear-based. Like it was very, not fear-based. It was like, and I don't want to say this in like a shitting on people way, but like very holistic, crunchy thing, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I consider myself soggy. Like I try to be. I try to be crunchy, but people have said scrunchy. People have said like scrunchy, or it's like where you're like semi crunchy, and I'm like soggy.
You see the positives to it, but it's not everything, right? Like
no. And so I remember getting this training of being like, C-sections result because women haven't been, I think it was like because we're sitting too much. And so you need to be sitting up to like, this is why our pelvises are too narrow. Like it was all this crazy shit that, when I had my first, and I was disappointed as to how her delivery went, because I worked out my entire pregnancy. I worked out until the day before I went to labor. Like I was like ready to prove. Yes, I was ready to prove that everything that I had trained and learned would come to fruition. And then when it didn't, I was so pissed. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I was adamant that I would not have a C-section, because again, I was kind of taking it on like, this is my fault. Like this is something happened to my body that I now need to fix in order for me to have a successful delivery and get back what I lost. Like it was like, I needed that redemption. And I did everything. I took like the hypnobirthing. I worked with midwives. And again, all of it was great. Like I have no regrets on any of those things, because those were actually like so great when it came to my C-section, which I'll get into. But I did everything with the idea that it was my fault. Like it was always my fault. So it was very scary.
It all puts so much pressure and blame on the birthing person, the woman. And that's where we need to, like, we can use all of these tools and all the holistic things can be so great, except when it puts so much blame and shame on you, like that's just not helpful at all.
No. And so long story short, my son, I was going with the whole idea was that I was going to be doing an unmedicated natural delivery, because apparently an epidural also is the reason why.
Shoulder dystocia.
Yeah. Yes. That was like, there was all this shit that, like, from what I was seeing, it was like shoulder dystocias happen because like moms get epidurals, they can't move. So their pelvis isn't as open, which maybe I understand different birthing positions may be better. Maybe, I don't know. But it all seemed like it was my fault, because it was all the choices that I had made that I was like, I'm not going to do any of those now. That's what I prepped myself for. And my son, my second, ended up laying transverse. So he had to come out C-section. And I remember going into that appointment. Actually, I went in to go see if I could get a version and see if I could turn him. Because again, I wasn't. And I went to my midwife who sent me to their pairing OBGYN. He was very nice. And he looked at my medical records, because I hadn't delivered with him prior. He was my first, I switched practices. and he saw how bad the shoulder dystocia was. And he sat me down. He was like, I'm not trying to scare you. I don't want you. Again, this is your choice. You can do with what this information as you will. But if my daughter was to have a delivery and had your history, I would not recommend it. He said, because based off of how terrible it was, like if it was a quick 1, 2, 3, they were stuck, we got him out, but yours was bad. And so he was like, he even said, it was like, New Jersey is a litigious state. And he was like, there's 1% of doctors in the state that deliver breech. He said, I am one of those 1%. And he was like, and there's like a small chance in every breech delivery that something could go wrong, but I will do it because I know that like I feel comfortable with that risk and what my capabilities are. And he said, with the shoulder, it
Right. For
scares me.
some people, that's the thing, where he was looking at you and your history.
And that's what I appreciated. And he was like, I would consider C-section. I went home and I cried. And I had a doula I hired at the time because I was planning on all of this. And I called her, and her mom, funny enough, was one of my midwives. So she called her mom, and her mom called me, and her mom just said, at the end of the day, we will be with you, whatever you decide. And this is your delivery. And they made it so wonderful. And I ended up getting the C-section. We planned for it. I tried to communicate. My biggest thing was I didn't want to be asleep. Like I didn't want to be knocked out for it. I wanted to remember it because everyone always told me how terrible like it was. And there are some emergency C-sections that, don't get me wrong, but it was a planned one. And I feel like it was so wonderful. Like my midwives made sure I was able to do skin to skin afterwards. And like the doctors were very open, and I like was able to talk to them. And that in itself was what changed all of it, was that I felt like I had a voice in this delivery. And that's what I was looking for. I've realized at the end of it, what women want is that self-advocacy, that being a part of it. It's your body. It's your delivery. We want to feel
that sense of control. And you trusted your providers. You really felt like your doctor was making a choice that for you in particular was the best decision for you. And that's what we love to talk about, how C-sections can be in those situations where they're needed or wanted, that they can be quite nice. You can incorporate so many elements of the vaginal birth experience, like the skin to skin, feeling, being completely awake, having a nice, anesthesia working well for you. Like that's all very possible. And in those circumstances, you can have a great experience. And we wish that for everybody's experience.
Totally.
Particularly, when it's planned and you can make these choices and kind of talk to people ahead of time. Did you ask about like the early skin to skin and stuff, or did they just kind of know that was something that you wanted?
I don't remember if I asked for it. I think they had actually, I think my midwife, when she called me, because again, I was like in tears. Like I just was like beside myself because I felt like an absolute failure of a human being. That's like, it's awful. But then I felt good about it once we like made the plan and whatnot. But I think she may have said that it was possible because I think they were starting to really, I think that was when like the clear plastic drapes and all that stuff were starting. I didn't have that, but they because I don't think it was available yet. But I also think, funny enough, I think the hospital I delivered at is, when I looked it up afterwards, they're one of like the first in the state gentle. I think they're called gentle C-sections or whatever. Yeah, I think they were the first to like
start making that a priority. Yeah. And letting people know that was an option.
Yeah. And I remember with my third, I actually didn't get skin to skin because of, I don't know, like I had hoped for it and they were able to hold it, but for whatever reason, that moment they weren't. I don't know if something else was, I don't know, but I just know that they were able to have the baby as close to me as possible. And the midwife, what helped me is obviously my midwives didn't deliver me, the OBGYNs did, but they were with me and they knew that I was scared. And so they stuck on my side to make sure that I was taken care of and baby was taken care of in like a mother baby unit. Like I appreciated that so much because again, my firstborn's delivery was so traumatic, but it was a huge practice. I didn't know who the doctor was that even delivered me. The whole thing was a shit show because the code blue happened to like shift change so everyone and their mother came in. So like those transitioning out and in were all there and it was like awful. And then then afterwards, they had to go transition people out. And I felt like I had 10 minutes and someone just like patted me on the knee. And my doctor just patted me on the knee and said, C-sections from now on. Didn't even explain to me what happened. And it was just, there's more to that, but it was just a terrible experience. So like for the second and my third, it was just lovely. Like I heard like my third was probably the roughest, like that hour after recovery when the pain meds start wearing off. That was probably the worst experience I can remember. Like that will be embedded in my head, but they were lovely otherwise.
Yeah.
I love you said that too, because like, I think that like so much of society always goes to only talking about the trauma of C-sections instead of looking at it like maybe it's really saving a woman from a traumatic experience. And especially because your experience, you know, it's hard if you go in again, you're anticipating maybe the same thing to happen, even if you're trying not to. It's still embedded in your brain that fear is going to come forward in some way. And I think that is what's so important for Jen and I is like, I think we're really working towards that. It's like, let's talk about it in a positive light. We recognize, we acknowledge there are definitely some circumstances that, you know, are negative, but if we lead with the positive, it will bring less fear to those going into it. And especially if it's a scheduled one.
Well, especially because like whenever we talk fear-based, any of that, the conversation stops. Like, and you know, like we have to be so careful. When I have pregnant friends, like I have to be so careful. Or like even on here, like when I shared my birth story, I had to do a trigger warning, and I was like, if you're pregnant, don't listen to this. I don't want fear in your head, but at the same time, I think it is appropriate to at some point open the doorway for, because that's how we, I mean, obviously connect, and it allows us to educate ourselves so that way going forward, we know how to like what questions to bring up to our provider, what, you know, what things we're looking for and what things we're not. But also like what you said, the different perspective. One thing that like really helped change my mindset was my grandma. And she's no longer alive, but after I had my C-sections, I don't know who mentioned it to me. I think it was my mom. And I don't think I fully knew the story, but my dad's an only child. However, he had a brother that was born prior to him. And this was like in the mid-50s. And from what my understanding was, my grandma was already like 42. So she was already, you know, more at risk, what you might say, and the phase. And they let her be in labor for like 72 hours, like full blown labor, because C-sections at that time were not really like they happened, but it wasn't.
Okay. So
wasn't the norm.
I actually, there's an episode, I just have to say this because my grandmother she just turned 97 and and so I'm so lucky to still have her. And I was telling her about the podcast, and I'd asked her about her birth stories, and they were so fascinating that we did an episode on it, because the way that they treated, you know, the way that things worked back then.
If you watch Call the Midwife, have you ever seen that show, Call the Midwife?
No, everyone says I need to watch it.
You need to watch it.
No, I haven't watched it.
It's on Netflix. It starts off like the first season is like more, this is why I like my conversations. I like them to flow. But the first season is like slower because it's like true, like, you know, the BBC, it's like British television where it's like a little off, but they really get into it. And it's just a feel good show. Like if you just want something that just, you'll feel good. Not too scary, you know. No, it's not scary, but they don't sugarcoat it. They take real stories. They actually, like from what and you're a medical professional, I don't know how medically accurate everything is, but I feel like people have actually said it, like from when I've ever listened, when they've had children dystocia episodes. Yeah. They've always like done it very, very well, but like it's based off of real memoirs of these midwives. And it's fascinating in that like time era.
What's the time course? Do you know when it was?
It starts right after World War II.
Okay.
Because they're like cleaning up the rubble from like bombings and stuff. And then they're in season like 14 now. So I think they're in like the mid 60s at this point.
History? Oh, okay. Yeah. I really have to watch it because I've gotten so fascinated with this. You know, back in the 1950s, I don't think they had fetal monitoring, right? Yeah. So that just wasn't a thing. So they didn't really, you kind of walk into the hospital and you just wait. And they just say, like, let us know when the baby is coming out. And for my grandmother, for her first couple births, which were in the very early 90s, they just drugged her without
like, wasn't it twilight birth or something? Weren't they called twilight births?
Yeah. So what
my other grandma had that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they just put a mask on her and then she woke up and there was a baby. She doesn't remember delivering the baby, and she's like throwing up, and you know,
I mean, it feels like a movie when you like talk about it. Like when Jen told the story, I'm like, that feels like that could not have been happening, but it did.
There was no epidural. Yeah. That was the only thing. And it wasn't even really, do you want this or do you not? This is what's happening. We're forcing this on you. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah. So tell me about your grandmother.
So she was in labor for 72 hours with her firstborn and ended up delivering him. They always considered him a stillborn, but from my understanding, he was actually born and then died due to stress, something. That's what they
Yeah.
said. He was stressed out
Yeah.
or something. I don't know the, reasoning, but he ended up dying. But like, that was the only thing that like changed my mindset with C-sections was like, imagine if that had been more accessible then, like if that had been more normal, like again, history, there were only so many things that we could have known, but like it made me appreciate having that opportunity because
Medical
like,
advances, right?
yeah, like it just made me appreciate it. It's like, it wasn't my body that failed. It was just like, just how shit goes. It is what it is.
It's just how it goes, right? Like
Yeah.
birth is, again, yeah, right. You don't want to put so much fear onto it, but the reality is things happen. And especially you have to look at where we are today, we're having babies older, we have IVF, we have all kinds of different things that make us different than we were before. But then we have all these extra tools at our disposal that sometimes are needed and sometimes can save lives, frankly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
And
So,
going back to the grandmas, like I just think to like they never even got to talk about it. Like no one was there to support them on it and how much in the last couple of years, like recognizing the importance of like letting a woman share her story and being able to be so raw and real and not, I can't even imagine not having like a tribe of women who I could like have been honest with and to feel like
because
I'm going to put it all in.
Yeah, even with my grandma. So from what like she was a cougar. She was 10 years older than my grandpa. I love it. But because she passed away first, and then my grandpa was so cute before he passed away, and like kept a memoir and like typed on a keyboard and all that stuff. So we have it, but like we've read it, and he had even shared at one point with my mom. I had a sister that passed away, so like they went through like that shared experience of losing a child, and I think my grandma, I know at one point had told my mom and like one-on-one prior that like she was just sent home. They afterwards, like I think the hospital gave the baby a name. Like I don't think they were even allowed to because it was like crazy shit. And then they just said, go home, forget it. You can try again. And I think she went home, and my grandpa at one point had said like one of his like things that he regrets is like at one point my grandma was grieving and probably whatever. And he just said, you need to get over this now. Like you need to like stop, because he didn't know what to do. He was like, there's no help. Like there's no communication or available anywhere, where it was just turn it off and keep going.
Move forward. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we still see that today.
Definitely.
With things that happen. And because it is hard to know what to say or what to do. I think so he recognized that though, as
looking back.
Looking back. But these situations are hard, no matter what, but the more we can feel less alone and the more I think we talk about these types of things, then people learn what to say and maybe what not to say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. I want to hear birth experiences too. We'll get Bethany. You continue before then, but then afterwards, I want to hear each of your C-section stories.
I don't even know what I was just about to say. I forgot it, but anyways.
That's all right. Mom brain. That happens. It runs right out the door. All right. Well, so how many C-sections? Bethany, let's start with you. How many kids do you have? You have 3. So 3 C-sections, right?
Yes. Yeah. I had 3 C-sections, and my first was a stillbirth actually. So that's why with my living 3, I was under MFM. So I had a lot more of a, controlled,
sorry, wait, you said your first, explain, would you say your firstborn was a
stillbirth?
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's why, like, when you mentioned, oh no, thank you. And when you mentioned with your grandmother, like, that's why it's like, it was 11 years ago. So I didn't have really an outlet of people I could talk to. And I did not know anyone who had gone through this experience. But now, as I've like lived and I've like gathered people in my life who like keep me safe, who like allow me to cry if I still want to cry. They don't, like there's still days that I'm like, I don't know why I'm so sad.
Of course
right now.
you do. Well,
still,
that's like making me tear up. It's just like a mom, like I hear it. Whenever I hear a mom going through that, like it's awful. I'm a mom. So it's just like, I've obviously never experienced it. I hope to never, but like, it just, it's awful. I'm so sorry. How far along were you with?
I was 28 weeks.
Okay.
And was it kind of a shock?
It was a total shock. I mean, I personally felt like something was going on, but my doctor was like very dismissive of the whole thing and was like, you're coming in for your glucose challenge. You don't need to worry about anything. The anatomy scan was fine, though I didn't think the anatomy scan was fine. And it wasn't like something like that they were telling me. It was just like, I just, in my gut, just had this gut feeling. So that kind of paved the way. Like, I mean, again, because I was a birth doula, this was a doctor I'd worked with as a doula. So then like literally everything changed after that. And, you know, to have a super controlled medical birth was like the only way I was going to become a mother again. And so that's why it's like, again, you see the need for it. You see the importance of, you know, I'm still love crystals. I still love to, you know, to be in that world. But I very much like the integration of like having a strong medical team, and you can still have all the other things. You can still have the skin to skin moments and the early breastfeeding and all of these things that I had only thought about that I wanted, but no, I was going to be safe and I was going to get to meet a live baby. That was the that was my only goal. That was the only plan forward.
Was it with C-sections going forward? Was there a medical reason why they said it, or was it you just needed that that reassurance that it was?
I mean, it's so funny. Jen asked me this one time too, and I like gave me such a pause. I mean, I just trusted my MFM so much, and he was an older gentleman. He like very much reminded me of like my grandfather, which like sometimes I say I'm like, is that weird that I wanted my grandfather to deliver me? But like at the same time, I felt like very safe. And I know he had seen so many cases that were similar to mine. So I was also on blood thinner. So normally they would try to deliver pretty close to the date of his, you know, I was at 28 weeks, so they weren't going to deliver me at 28 weeks, but I was delivered at 38 weeks. So it's, it was, but too, my anxiety at the end, like, do you know, I don't know if you know what a Doppler is, but it's
I have one. Yeah.
I was like obsessive with it, like to the point that I was like, if I don't get this baby out, like I'm not like mentally, I was just spiraling. So it served both purposes. It was medically, you know, obviously being on blood thinners to have a scheduled C-section, but also just for my own kind of,
which is a perfectly valid. That's why I asked, because like I actually, it was the girl that like waxes or she used to wax my eyebrows, and then my mom's like, you know how you connect with these people in life. And it's great. But we had a conversation, but I was actually pregnant with my first when she was pregnant with her first. And she immediately, the moment, opted for a C-section. And that was just her thing. And I forget her reasoning, but she just knew that it was going to, like, her anxiety and her mental health could not handle the unknowing of it. And her doctor knew her well enough that it was fine. And I was like, the fact that people would challenge you on that, like I'm such a big person in talking mental health. But like you said, grief and all that stuff, like your brain, all of this is just as important as what physically is happening. It's just like, and people don't realize that.
Well, they have to be in balance with one another. And that's why I think when people come at Jen and I are like, why would you talk so much about C-sections? We're like, are you kidding me? That in itself is like, it's creating an unsuccessful road for a mother and a chance of this postpartum depression to creep up and all these things that everyone is telling us to suppress. They then come up, and then like now you have a baby and you're trying to handle the like mental load of all of these changes that you're going through. It's unfair.
Yeah, it's completely unfair. It's just it's painted to be. I love when I hear the lazy comment. It's the easy way out.
Easy way out
type of thing. I'm like,
having a surgery and a newborn is totally easy.
But
I think part of this conversation, you know, when we look at kind of the holistic, you know how we're empowering women, bodily autonomy, don't let anyone do anything to you. Well, part of autonomy is also being able to listen to your inner voice and making a choice that if a C-section is what feels safest to you, that is also your using your own autonomy to be able to choose the path that feels right for you. It's it's the same thing when it comes to an elective C-section.
I've always said, because like with my second, my third, like I said, they were wonderful. And it was my midwife team that really made it super wonderful. And again, it was just the practice. I loved them. And that's not to say everyone here has to go with midwife. It was just the practice itself where I always just tell people, I'm like, if you find a provider, like my first provider that delivered my firstborn, again, it was like a shit show of a situation. But even anytime I went prior to them, or if I called them with like that first time pregnancy worries, like someone once told me when I was pregnant for the first time that if your baby has the hiccups a lot, it can be a sign of something bad. So I like called the doctor. Yeah, and I called the doctor. I was like, my baby has the hiccups a lot. Is this normal?
And it's actually just so cute.
Yeah, they made me feel so stupid though. And with my third, when I was pregnant with her, I actually I had 3 healthy kids. I was about to deliver my third healthy kid. And I almost had like this anxiety that the other shoe was going to drop. I was like, no one is this lucky. Shit's going to go wrong. Like, obviously, and I wasn't even considering the firstborn's delivery as like shit going wrong. I just like considered it like I have 3 healthy kids. This one's going to end up. And I had a lot of prenatal anxiety, like pregnancy anxiety the third time. And I called, I think it was 17 weeks. And I just woke up one morning convinced that something was wrong. And I had no reasoning for it. I felt fine, but I just was convinced that something was wrong and nothing was. I called my midwife. I was crying. I dropped my kids off. I had to drive over there and like drop them off my parents go. And I was fine. And I just cried in their office and I said, I just don't know what's wrong. And they're like, you can come here anytime.
Right.
And they're like, and we will listen and you can talk. Like, we understand this. Like, and they didn't make me feel stupid. And I think the biggest thing that did was like, I realized, like, I've always joked intuition and anxiety are like twin sisters. Just one has like
I agree with that. I love that.
One has like a freckle placed somewhere that unless you really got to know them, you wouldn't notice.
Right.
So that's how I like to look at it.
Good.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, they let me get to know one of the twins.
I have to explore because I don't know. Is this the one with the freckle or not? Like, let's figure it out.
Yeah. So, and that's my biggest thing is like having podcasts, stuff like yours is just like, it allows women to have that space to ask the stupid questions. Like, we don't know this shit. Like, I didn't know anything. You don't turn into a mom. Like,
there are no stupid questions. Like, honestly, every time I like talk to my clients, I'm like, there is not a stupid question is you not asking it. And that's, you go into these birth classes and like, for me, like the birth class I took, like they didn't talk about C-sections at all. And my husband kept being like, are you going to ask something? I'm like, no. He's like, then why are we here? I'm like, well, because I felt like you should have some knowledge. Like, I have the knowledge, but like,
I want you to hear it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you also have to hear things multiple times sometimes. Someone just wrote a comment on our podcast and she was like, I don't know why she said this, but she said, it's okay that you repeat things over multiple episodes because we need to hear it multiple times. And I was like, do we do that? But I'm like, that's probably true, right? Yeah. It's so much information and there's so much going on in your mind. And especially with the anxiety and everything going on, sometimes you also just have to hear it again and again. Like, yes, it's still fine. And yes, this is okay.
Yeah. On a different day, you might digest it a little bit differently because how it's like being presented or where your mind is that day. And I love what you said that you had like a team that you trust and they allowed you to like cry and feel those feelings. It drives me crazy when people like are like telling people to stop crying and like, I'm like, no, let them cry. Let them feel it all out. Let them get it out. It's therapeutic. Like, don't give them a hug. Don't tell them to
that's
stop
all they
crying.
need. Yeah, don't stop crying. I'm big on that because I mean, as moms and women, we just pent up all this shit. Like we let it boil over, and I
you can feel it in your chest when you're holding it in, and it's like you just have to.
I cry in front of my kids sometimes. Like I get like extra dramatic when they're like all being mean to me at once, and I'm just like, "Mommy has feelings."
I know we had to cancel. Did I cancel? Did you guys hear about my bird disappearing? Did you hear about this bird?
Tell us about your bird.
It sounds so stupid. It sounds so silly. Okay, it sounds silly because it's a bird, but this guy was the chillest thing in the world. I love my animals, but we had a pet cockatiel. I bought him for my kids. It was like our first ever bird. It was great. And he flew away on the morning of my birthday. Sounds awful. But I literally lost it because I was solo parenting for like 10 days straight. I had just woken up on my birthday. Like I turned 35. And so like that 35 mark, I was like, this is going to be it. Like, we're going to make this great. And then all of a sudden I felt like the floor just like fell out from underneath me. And all of the crap that you just hold on to spilled out. And was inconsolable. Like I couldn't stop crying, and my family was coming over for birthday dinner, and I just lost it. And the best thing that I could have done, though, I'm so glad it happened, because like in that moment, I was actually really embarrassed about how bad I got, because it was almost like beyond me. Like I feel like our emotions, just like if you don't get them out, they're going to take over at some point.
Oh, for sure.
And afterwards, I was so glad that I did it. And I was so glad that I can like show my kids an unraveling, because it's like, we don't have a plan. Like everyone forgets that like we're doing this all for the first time. And like,
Yeah.
And we're kind of, we're trying to teach them too that it's okay to cry, right? That's one of the things you're supposed to do. So it's also okay, which I have a very hard time, because I'm like, I don't want to upset them. And but
Jen and I are very much the opposite.
we're very alike in a lot of ways. And also we're like
losing my shit.
I love
Jen's like, it's all perfect.
I'm like, I don't want to make them feel bad, so I'm gonna go cry by myself. But you're supposed to. I know you're supposed to, because we're like, you want them to be able to feel their emotions, so you also have to be able to show them your emotions too.
Yeah.
I think it's just and that acceptance too. I think it's just like the ability of like working through it. I think, everyone says it's okay to not be okay, but like we say that, but then we don't let people show it.
True.
So we will say it. We're like, it's okay not to be okay, but if you act not okay,
people are concerned.
Right.
Then stop. You're making it uncomfortable. I don't know what to say, whatever. And it's just like you said, just let it out. And then afterwards repair. Like that's my big thing. I'm a repairer. Like I'm someone that like in moments that you can't control it, almost, you just have to take acknowledgement for it and just be like, okay, we're going to fix this. And
a little mini nap afterwards. That's what I always tell my kids after like a full meltdown. I'm like, now let's go take a little nap. Let's finish this reset.
Yes. The best stuff ever. Jen, I want to hear your birth stories.
Okay. So both of our daughters are about to turn 7 in a couple of
We're feeling very sad about
days now.
Days.
Are they in first grade, going into first grade?
Going into first.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I was doing I did an anesthesia residency, and then I did a year of just OB anesthesia to get a fellowship, specialize in doing that. And at the end of I was going to have my baby towards the end of that year. So I spent that whole year literally just, taking care of women in the labor and delivery unit on the hospital. And I kind of knew that I just knew I was going to end up having a C-section. I don't know why. I think it's because some of my colleagues had recently their first babies. They were girls and they were breech and they had to have C-sections. But I found out basically my daughter was breech. I sort of was just following along. I wasn't upset about it at all, but I just was sort of like, okay, I'm going to try a version, because that's one way to just, make sure I did everything that I could, which in my mind, that was the main thing. I did the spinning babies and stuff like that too. I just kind of, looked online, did what I could, what I had time to do, because I was super busy. And I went in at 37 weeks, to try to do a version. And I did it without anesthesia, because I was sent to this guy who was supposed to be the best. They're like, if he can't turn your baby, nobody can.
Yeah.
And he couldn't. And it was so painful.
I still can't believe you did.
And that was my first experience with pain, because I had never had a surgery before. I just had nothing medical happen in my whole life. And so I wonder if spoiler alert, I had really bad pain after my C-section, but I feel like that might have like tipped it off for me or something.
You never broke a bone or had to get stitches or anything?
No.
What?
No.
Oh, that was me too, though. I never until. I mean, I've gotten bruises. Yeah, I've gotten bruises, but I've never had to get stitches
but no, I never broke a bone. I never got stitches.
I'm feeling like my parents didn't watch me very well.
Yeah. So I scheduled my C-section. I had my baby in the operating room that I lived in every single day for that whole year. So I had my OB, I had chosen my OB to be the person that I worked with, that I knew was the most amazing surgeon. I trusted her decisions completely. I just knew everybody really well and had the best people in the operating room with me. I actually tried another version after I got my spinal for the C-section. They're like, do you want us to try one more time?
Oh God, yeah.
And I said yes. And that time when they tried, her heart rate like started to go down. And I was like, forget it.
Yeah,
like
done.
Scratch it.
Yeah.
So for 1 second, it was almost going to have to be emergent. Like my husband wasn't in the room with me yet. But anyway, so I had the C-section. It was a great experience. I mean, I was with, like I said, all of the people that I loved and trusted completely. I had amazing anesthesia, like didn't feel anything. I remember the moment of, seeing her for the first time and touching her for the first time. And it was all just beautiful. It was great. I did have like, once my anesthesia wore off, I was like, what
the hell happened?
Yeah. What happened? And the whole, my practicing taking care of other women, I would always say, get up really early. Like the best thing you can do for yourself is start walking and get moving. So I had this idea in my mind that I was going to practice what I preach. Yeah. So I just tried to stand up, and I was just very, very shocked by how I could not just stand up. Like you can't. Yeah. So I struggled with that. Especially like the first couple of days in the hospital. And then I struggled with breastfeeding. I had a lot of pain with that. And also I just think because I couldn't get my body in a position that was
comfy. Yeah.
At all. Yeah. Reasonable. So I struggled with that, but I don't look back on that stuff as, I don't know, like traumatic. It's like, oh, that was like really shitty.
Frustrating.
And yeah. It was like a baby boot camp. You're like figuring out how to be a mom for the first time. I didn't know. I'm an only child. Like I never took care of children before. Like I was like Googling, like, how do you change a diaper? Like I didn't know anything about babies. And so it was a lot at once. And after that, the other thing about that experience was that my OB, when we found out my daughter was breech, she said, it's okay. This is like going to be a really easy first time C-section. No problem. And then you'll have a VBAC for your second. Like she told me that like as I was going in for my C-section. And so I just sort of internalized that. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'll have a VBAC for my second. And so, they're like 2 years apart. So whenever that was, I was pregnant again.
Yeah. 2019, because we had 2020 babies.
Yeah. So I had that in my mind, but I also, again, I didn't want to be one of those people that I saw that were so disappointed if the VBAC didn't work out. So I was kind of like doing these mental gymnastics, telling myself like, hopefully it works out, but you're going to be fine either way. And we're just going to take it day by day. And then the pandemic happened, which was really a thing because I was 20 weeks pregnant and
working in a hospital,
working in New York City at a big academic center that was kind of a hub for all of the activity. And that was really a thing.
That was probably more traumatic. I would imagine that would be more.
That was for sure. And because I didn't know, I was like, every day I would go into work and I was like, am I risking like my life, my unborn baby's life and my 18-month-old? Or like, do I just not, I never would have considered the way that we're trained, it's you go in when you're sick, you go in when you're sad, you go in, it doesn't matter. You go into work, like you like never take a day off. And that was the first time in my life that I was like, well, I have something now that's more important than my job. And so do I show up every day? Do I show up today?
Yeah.
Do I show up today? Anyways, ultimately I got through that and got to where, the end of my pregnancy. So he was born in July of 2020 and my OB knew that's what I wanted, but she said, if the baby's kind of trending bigger and, if you don't go into labor on your own, you should plan a C-section. And she did a membrane sweep for me at 38 weeks. Okay. And she's like, let's see, because you're already 1 centimeter dilated, which I was not dilated at all with my first. And I went into labor. And so
you got your VBAC.
I did. Yeah. It was like a little rocky. Just, it wasn't like fun. Like, is this actually going to happen? Like my epidural didn't work great. And there was like some things, but it was after my recovery was better, which is what I was most worried about, you know? But what's so funny about comparing the two situations is I was so, well, I had to push for a while and I was so exhausted and so nervous about whether or not this VBAC was going to work. I don't even really remember my son being like finally born and being put on me and feeling like that same emotional connection to my child as I felt during my C-section, where I was so clear-headed. So, because I was just so happy that I got him out and that I was like, I actually did this.
And it's like a shock moment because I think it's the pregnancy pause. They call it the pregnancy pause. I think it's like that deer in headlights moment you'll see women have after they push out a baby, where it's like a lot of the moms just kind of lay there. Like, no, they're not, whatever. And I looked into it and it's like, literally, it's like the moment that like, I think there's like more of a, I feel like, I forget what I read, but I don't know if there was, I think they call it the pregnancy pause. And I don't know if there's like some people hold like more of a spiritual meaning for it, where it's like literally the moment that your body is like, shifting, but, or if there's actually a medical reason.
Is like a whole thing. Like people think that
hormones, like a lot of things happen for sure. Like they actually, physically and I'm sure spiritually, a lot of things are happening in that moment.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it was interesting for me to compare, because a lot of times we hear all this negativity about, which there are for many reasons, but with, bonding and having those first moments and those first moments being taken away from you when you had a C-section. But in a way, for me, that exact moment was almost, I don't know, at least it was more clear and more like I can remember it so well in my mind versus those first moments with my son with the VBAC.
Same. That's how mine was, but mine was also different. Mine was,
it's different. Yeah, but it's
but still,
it was scary too for me because I just, obviously, just is this actually going to happen and pushing for so long. And I don't know if my body can actually like push for one more minute. But two very different experiences.
Yeah. I think our body does a lot too to block things out because of how uncomfortable it is. I swear.
Yes.
God, because I mean, C-section, like I said, I'll always remember that. They made me move beds by myself after I had my second. That was the only thing I'll complain about the hospital I was at. They made me shift from the wheelie bed. What? What'd you say?
Like, were you like?
I had to. I don't know what happened, but they made me do it, and I was like, I don't think I can move. Like, I literally feel like I've been gutted, and I don't remember. Like, it hurt, but I was able to do it. But my third, I think she started nursing right away, so I think it was a combo of like the nursing contractions and then just like the pain relief wearing off in that hour and a half that they held me back there. But like, where I had to have my husband like take him off or take the baby away from me, and like I've never been in so much pain that it was like my body was convulsing because I was in so much pain. I'll always remember that because I now always think about it when I see or hear about like a true crime, anything, or you hear about these people that survive, or like when you watch a movie and you see these people, when I see them get stabbed in the stomach, I'm like, I'd be done. I'd go down. There's no way that I would ever survive.
Honestly.
I don't know how anyone would do that.
I can't take it. I guess I just have no... Because I also hurt even with the epidural for my VBAC. So I'm like, I just have a very low pain tolerance. That's just who I am. I never knew that until I had my first child because I hadn't experienced anything, but it's fine. Like that's who I am. Yeah. Some people are fine in so many similar situations. I guess they're just different people. And so I think that's me. And that's
like, I mean, I know I had pain. Like I think a lot more for my second, I felt like in a lot more pain than I did, but it was like I blocked it out to be able to have another. Like, I was like, if I'm going to have another, I might as well just like block this out and keep moving forward.
That's funny because our friend just had her third C-section and she said it was her best pain experience.
Yeah.
It's just like, you never know.
You never know.
I recovered faster my second time. Like I got up, but again, my second one, it was that hour and a half. I think the pain just got ahead of you. Like that's the biggest thing. Anyone here that's getting a C-section, don't be like,
don't chase that
obviously, pain. Don't try to be a superhero with the whole pain management stuff. Like I was able to just do Motrin. Like I stuck with that because I have a high pain tolerance. I think it was just at that moment, the pain got way ahead of me because if pain gets ahead of you,
no, that's
it's hard.
Worse. That's what I blame all my pain on is just something was it got too much. I waited too long to take the pain medicine, and then I was just screwed for the rest of the time.
I don't know if you had this with any of your C-sections, but I had the shoulder tip pain.
Oh God, yeah. Right behind my shoulder blade, yeah. Or I had shoulder. When was it? I think it was either my second or my third, but I remember feeling a lot of pain right behind, and I still get it sometimes.
Yeah. Mine was like, I
it
didn't
is. Yeah,
care.
right there.
You were touching it.
Yeah.
That's a pain I'll never forget. And actually, we talked about that too, because in the moment when I kept telling the nurse at whatever it was, I always say 2 or 3 in the morning, but I'm pretty certain it was. And I was like, what is this? Like, it's right here. It hurts so bad.
What is that? Do you know what that is, Jen?
Yeah. So it's referred pain from your diaphragm. So basically your diaphragm gets irritated from all the stuff that's open in your belly from the surgery.
Yeah.
So and it's pretty common. I didn't have it, but what's interesting as we were talking about it is how many people might experience something like this, and it could be very mild or it can be more severe. But if you don't know that this is something that could happen, or you're like, why is this happening? Am I having like Bethany's, like a heart attack, or like, is it, what is
on
it?
blood thinner. So I was like, am I having
freaked out. Embolism.
That's really what I thought. I was like, did you give me my heparin? They're like, yes, you did.
Well, that, and I was glad my anesthesiologist, I think it was the first C-section I had. So my second born, I think it was her. It's like, I love how I forget all these details now, but
we do
I know it was a female. And I remember I loved her because she told me, and she was like, if you start feeling nauseous, tell me immediately. And she said, chances are I'll probably be able to catch it before you do. And I'm like, why? And because of blood pressure? Is it blood pressure dropping or something like that? She was like, if you feel it.
I almost use that exact same line. I say, tell me if you start to feel nauseous because I can do something to help you.
Yeah. And it does. So like anyone here, again, if anyone here is listening and going to have a C-section and you don't know, like, again, get to know your anesthesiologist well, because that's the person that's going to be up by your head and you're going to be able to talk to them the most.
Good point.
And I always want the patient, I try to like befriend them because they're usually like my age and that's why I love my job. But yeah. So there's different things that cause nausea during your C-section, but usually right after the spinal, a lot of times it's that blood pressure drop. And we're checking your blood pressure, but sometimes we're not, depending on how frequently you're checking it, sometimes you as the mom feel it first. And so if you start to feel that feeling.
Yeah, and you'll feel it. It literally comes out of nowhere. Because I remember laying there and I was okay. And all of a sudden it was like that immediate car sick feeling where I was like, this is going to be really bad. And the moment I said it, I said, I'm nauseous. She was like, give me a second, literally a second. And she, whatever it was, and it was gone. Like, it was amazing, where I was like, I want this all the time. Like, I feel like I'm always constantly a nauseous person in general. But
I experienced that too. So
I'm a nausea person.
The second I met my anesthesiologist, it was the first thing I said to them. I was like, I know this is going to happen. So like, if we can mitigate this, let's like get right on top of it.
It was my big things. I remember saying that for my first C-section was not the nausea, because I didn't know about that, but she had prepped me, was like the concern of, I want to remember this. And I think it was either her, and I know I said it the second C-section that I had, my third delivery. And I know I said it, and I feel like the doctor replied back to me. They said, as long as you promise to keep your arms down and not freak out, I won't have to give you anything. And I was like, you don't have to worry about that. But he was like, that's really the only time that I would ever give someone something that would really make them loopy, is if they really aren't handling the surgery well.
And not just arms thing. But I think I don't like when I feel like people are being too kind of patronizing to women. Like, if you're get out of control, if you behave. First, it's okay to be anxious. And when it comes to medications, I see this in two ways. So one is there are people who are super anxious. So like, I have anxiety. I know I would like a medication to treat my anxiety because I know I might have a panic attack during surgery or something like this. And then you might see those women being told, no, I can't give you something, the baby, yada, 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 which is not true. And then on the other hand, we're seeing women get medications that maybe they don't want because they don't want to be out of it. They don't want to feel loopy. And we can, instead of medicating people, like talk to them and be like,
calm them, give them
or,
coping.
like I like to now like turn on music in the operating room, or, that's sort of, I see it as part of our job too. Or if you have a doula in the room, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, well, that was like my midwives kind of were because at the time
Yes.
the doula I had hired that for my second delivery, I ended up not using her because she wasn't certified to she couldn't be in the C-section room. She wasn't able. That's changed. I know there's a lot of doulas now that can be in the C-section room, but like my midwife stood in there, and that was like, because they, like I said, they stood up by me, but like they were the ones that explained, like, now they're going to do this. You're going to feel pulling. You're going to feel this. Like,
that is
amazing.
They were good in order, like, just to let me know.
Yeah. Well, that information, like it is happening to your body. So that information
it's terrifying.
Like, I mean, I said I wanted to be talked through my entire C-section, even though you can feel, even though you're numb, you can still feel the weight of that baby coming out. It's like, it's like this moment I will always remember. It's like you can feel the baby being pulled out of your body, but I still wanted to know, like, okay, where are we? I
wanted my husband to film it. I was like, can you? I asked and we got like a video of like the baby being brought over, but I really wanted to see a video of like
the actual surgery.
Yeah. Afterwards, not like during, but I was like, I would just be fascinated to see, because it's like, it's so surreal too. Like when you're in a surgery moment, like you'd said, Jen, like I've never had, well, I've gotten like my tonsils out and stuff like that. But like in that moment of being awake and like knowing that your body is gone, it was the weirdest situation where it's like surreal.
There's nothing to really compare it to anyway, I guess. If you have had surgery, it's the only time that we actively try to keep people completely awake, because even if you're having a spinal, because we do spinals for other surgeries, like let's say a knee surgery or something, but then we're giving you sedation. So it's not the same. It's not the same. It's very, very rare. I can't,
that is it, just because they don't want, because I know like you could be put fully under, obviously that's usually done only for emergency situations. Is that because of why
be put fully asleep? So one would be that if you have a contraindication to spinal or epidural. So sometimes, like, let's say if you have preeclampsia and your platelets are really, really, really low, a situation like that, or some kind of bleeding disorder, those are kind of the most common contraindications. Other times, if they try to do a spinal or an epidural and then it doesn't work for some reason, something is going on, then you might be put to sleep. And then I've had patients request to be put to sleep. I think most likely an anxiety type situation or a prior trauma. And so it can be done. And in a super emergent situation, so they might say, we don't have a time to put in a spinal epidural. They might feel like it's quicker for them to put you totally to sleep. I guess those are kind of the main reasons.
Yeah. Interesting. I love it.
But normally people want to be awake and you don't need any kind of extra medications. I try really hard not to give anything unless there's like a really explicit request from the mom. And those moms know, they know themselves. They know, like, I have anxiety, like this is going to be. And then in those situations, I find that when I give them a little bit of medication, they're not out of it. They're not like asleep. They're just brought down to where they want to be. So in those situations, like, all for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Well, as we're going to wrap things up, but I have one thing I want to ask both of you, because I know I have moms here who may be maybe you're about to have a C-section, you're scared. The one thing that I hear C-section newcomers scared of is the first poop after a C-section.
Oh. Well, okay. I'm going to give you some
let's go into it. We're going on TMI here. We're going to talk about our experiences, whether or not it's actually worth being terrified.
It's a real thing. It is. It is my first, and like also being a nurse, like the fact I didn't do this ahead of time with my first, I didn't start the Colace till like a day before.
A Colace.
Take a Colace, start a week before. If you have a scheduled, like I then for my second, because I will never forget that first bowel movement. My dad we were in a small apartment in Brooklyn. My dad had just come and I was like, I need to use the restroom. And I'm telling you, I was like, and I have had to do digit removals before. And I was on the toilet for like 45 minutes. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this to myself. I was freaking out because I didn't want to have to go back to the hospital and have it done. And
this is a story I have not heard before.
I love it.
My dad kept being like, are you okay? Are you going to like, Dad, just go back 5 feet into the other room. Please get away from the bathroom door.
Go away from the door.
So my like 2 gold pieces of advice are always start a cold. I mean, honestly, even in a vaginal delivery, I mean, you can monitor your stool. Like,
I didn't even think about taking it beforehand because it's a pregnancy, it's Holday's pregnancy.
Yeah, I think so, but
I don't know. Talk to your midwives, but if you can start something early,
it's a stool softener.
It's a stool softener.
Laxative, so it's
it's
softener.
Yeah, but I know
those are generally quite safe. But obviously ask. Ask your doctors,
but take it. Don't be a hero. Like, and don't be too like if you most likely had a little bit of your pubes shaved off. So all of that goes out the window. You've had to like be naked, pretty much naked on a table as people opened you up. So all of that shame goes out the window. Take the Coley's.
For sure.
I don't remember it being too bad with mine, which tells me it wasn't. But I know the big thing.
Opioids, though, right? You didn't.
No,
you only took Motrin.
Okay, so I took
the Motrin.
We took opioids for a few days, and so that's one side effect is constipation. I knew to be on top of it, so I was on the stool softener, but I eventually took like 1 dose of a laxative because I had all the pain issues, and I wanted it to be. You want it to be so soft.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, you don't want to deal.
You don't want to have to do.
Then you'll get a hemorrhoid.
So definitely, if you might not know. If you're going in for the first time, am I the type that's going to need to be taking opioids afterwards or not?
Yeah.
And there's nothing either way.
There's nothing wrong with it. You view your pain.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. But also just, for sure, like you might need to be extra on top of it if you are taking opioids, but having that, at least the mild softener to just help it slide out a little more. Like when
I feel like that is
potty training, let it slide.
Yes. That's what I learned in my second and third. That was like, I was like, I will never put myself in that situation. And like in the hospital, they're going to give it to you. It's on your standing order, but buy it ahead of time before you even go to the hospital. So it's one less thing you have to send somebody out to get for you.
Yeah. And have it home with you and all that stuff. I always was really, I love fruit and veggies, but like eat that stuff like crazy. I feel like that
with the water.
Yeah. With water. I like really go crazy on that stuff. Again, this is all like a TMI weird.
No, but it's
combo, but it's so important because it really is. But like a lot of women are very scared of like that one aspect of being like, I've heard it's horrifying. And I don't remember it being that way. So that tells you, like, I think someone told me, make sure you stay on top of water, make sure you take the Coley's, make sure your fiber, all those things. And because I had that, it was better. So that's why, again, we have to talk about this stuff, the not so pretty stuff of all this.
And I do think it's just the first poop for some reason. It's like that fear factor.
Yes,
too.
it was the first. Yeah.
Like, okay, you're even just, the muscles we have to use. And after just having a surgery, you just got to get through that first one. And
I actually remember peeing. I feel like peeing hurt at that first.
Yeah.
Maybe because it was like
the catheter. Yeah.
Probably that. And I think your muscles are all like weird down then. You're like almost not sure how to like relax because you just, it's so weird. I always was worried about throwing up afterwards, but I never did. I was always nervous about that because I'd heard stories of women throwing up afterwards, and the idea of doing that with
I did. That's where like the pillow, like I also say like ask for an extra pillow when you're in recovery. So you can take that pillow and you can fold it over and you can brace yourself. Like or a nursing pillow. I brought so much stuff to the hospital with me, but I used my nursing pillow to brace myself if I'd cough, sneeze, laugh. There's like those natural responses are still going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Everything that's using your core is even laughing.
Even laughing.
Yeah. And then the one last thing I always say for women who are having a C-section is, like you had said when you brought your husband to the class and you're like, I want you to listen. Seriously though, do that only because when you have a C-section and like you have a catheter in for, 12 to 16 hours afterwards. I don't know the time frame for every hospital, but I know I had mine in for a decent amount of time. You're sitting in those like leg pressure cuffs to make sure you don't get a blood clot. You can't get out of bed. So like you won't have that chance. So it's important to have someone with you, and your husband's going to have to change the first baby poop, and that first baby poop is tar. So it's like they have to know what they're doing and know how to put a diaper on and like all this stuff, and then accept all the help from the nurses. Like I always say, like the hospital I delivered in, they don't have nurseries anymore. Most hospitals don't have nurseries at all, and ours don't. They believe in like baby mom units
it's like that
only.
Big push for
and so you feel bad, but at one point, I think it was my third. It was like the second night or something. I was like going on like 70, like felt like 72 hours worth of like no sleep. I was so delirious, and I couldn't. And the baby was waking up every like
5 minutes,
20 minutes, whining, fussing, cluster feeding, all that stuff. And the nurse came in at one point. She was like, "Can I take her for like an hour?" And I was like, "Please." And then I cried afterwards because then my anxiety couldn't stand it and I hated it and then I felt bad. And it was fine. But then I felt, I fell asleep.
Every coin, right? Like you want that nursery to be available if you need it, but then you don't want them taking your baby without your consent. But having it available, especially when you're recovering from a surgery, and acknowledge that you're recovering from a surgery and you need to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your baby.
Yeah. So like, again, there's no superhero complexes here. Like you are a superwoman, like you're a superhero because you've got cut open. Like I always like to feel like I feel like that. Like you survived a surgery when awake. And delivered a baby. Yeah, you created a human being. Yeah, every person that could do that is regardless if you're raising good humans or creating them, you're a superhero. But
100%.
Don't take it too far. So
listen to your body, listen to your, we all have this internal thing where we know what's best for us, and just, listening to that voice and making sure that you are taking care of yourself, because we need to do that.
My last piece of advice is make sure that the people around you are not going to annoy you. Because you're like, you're going to be irritable. Like you're not sleeping. And I learned that my like second, third time around, I'm like, I don't think I need my mother-in-law to stay with us at the house. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say you need people around you who are going to actually be helpful and not ask stupid questions. There are stupid questions.
I wish we had more time so I could get into that story more.
I got
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Is there anything that you want my audience to know about you guys? Anything important happening? I'll link your podcast and all that stuff in the show notes, but
we talk a lot about C-sections on our podcast. So
we have a great free guide that's on our website.
That kind of just is a kind of free downloadable guide that kind of helps you think through some of your options, things you may want or not want. Like the nursery is one of them. Like I want my baby to go to the nursery. I don't want my baby to go to the nursery. Yeah. So kind of, especially if you've never done this before, gives you an idea of maybe choices you're going to have to make or options you might have. So we have that on our website, csxpodcast.com. If anyone wants to check it out.
I love it. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yay.
Chatting with you.
All right, Mama, that is a wrap on today's episode of Picking Daisies. I hope today's chat left you feeling seen, understood, and maybe even gave you a good laugh along the way. As we all know, motherhood isn't easy, life isn't easy, but it's moments like these where we can connect and share our stories that really help make that load feel a lot lighter. So if you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean the world to me if you could take a moment to leave a rating and review. Your feedback not only will help this show grow, but also it will make sure it reaches other moms who might need that same dose of honesty, humor, and heart. And don't forget, if something in today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or hop on over to Instagram or wherever you connect on social media and keep the conversation going. I love hearing your stories and being a part of this journey with you. Thank you for being here and for showing up for yourself. And then, of course, sharing that space with me. So until next time, remember, we all grow through what we go through. You've got this, Mama. I'll see you next week.